Vincent, if you could start screen sharing, please. Go ahead.
Can you see the screen?
Yes.
Okay, good. So welcome to my poster. This is more of a variety. The first one that I did on the Pechakucha was different. And this is also on one of my projects that I've done before. My real research will be in the presentation in the evening. But I would like to share about my poster. The reason why Palm Trilogy, because I was involved in all three of them, although I was more involved in the last one. But I would like to share a lot of misnomer about this Palm Trilogy. People think it's like, you know, it's something that is not in the air, it's not sustainable, it's this and that. And I've been there myself. So I work on the project and I know how much it means. And it's really a contribution to the world. That's how I look at it. So I've just explained to you the concept behind it and also some of the things that are, of course, in every noble concepts, there are always things that we can learn from. I don't see it as failure. I see it as things to be learned, because this is really, I see from the perspective of the developer who's a visionary, not the developer who's out to just make some bucks. So the Palm consists of the trilogy, and it began with a vision of Sheikh Mohammed, who's the ruler of Dubai. Of course, he also has many stories, as we heard before the panel, that's full of information. But these are gigantic feats. If you look at the one that, if you look at the ambitious they had, they started off with Palm Jumeirah, which was small, and then Palm Jebel Ali, and then the last one was Palm Dera, and they started doing a bit of the world. They even had the universe. That was in planning when I was there. So, but as they say, man proposes, God disposes. So sometimes we can want to build a ladder up to the sky, but you know, we can only plan, and we will see in the later the lessons learned. In fact, to me, this is equivalent to the Great Pyramid in Gaza or the Great Wall of China, because from the top of the satellite, you can really see it clearly. The second one that I want to would like to highlight is the way the islands are done. A lot of people said, oh, it's going to be washed away by tsunami, it's going to be this technology that they're doing on reclamation is actually by the best in the world. It's from Amsterdam and Belgium. And I think in Amsterdam, everybody says, oh, it's so beautiful. There's all these wharf and reclaimed islands. So these are done with very meticulous, even with the greatest technology of GPS. First, they don't simply, and it's sustainable because they take the sand from the sea, they pump it, and after they do the revertment to make sure, and then they do vibro compaction. Okay, so these are technology that's proven in the European world and elsewhere in the world actually. But the next one that I wanted to show you was about from a small, from the development point of view. If you see from the Jumeirah, this is where the developer from visionary, this is really an analysis, but this is from where a developer learns from his success and failure, that the palm, even the second palm, if you look at Palm Jabali, the orange one, it is still a palm with actually some poetic verses by Sheikh Mohammed. But the third palm, it became a cabbage because they found out, and through the feasibility, we worked out that it is more feasible to just don't do any buildings and just go to developers and sell land. That's why it became a cabbage. It looks more like a cabbage than a palm. I'll go to the next slide. So this is what you see today from the Google map. And the first one is completed, and they had They had big celebration with all the celebrities all over the world that came. The second one is Jebel Ali. Sorry. Right. Sorry. Give me a second.
Just so you know, Vincent, we're at 5. So
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. No problem. Can you see now?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So forgive me for the little glitch. So Palm Jumeirah has been completed in 2000. It started in 2002 and it finished in 2007. And then 2009, the Atlantis was open, a big celebration. And today it is still a tourism hub with a lot of buildings still. And the latest one, if you see here, this is the one that is the latest in 2009 they offer for residential. This is already built and is you can buy or rent there. The second one, Jebel Ali, nothing is done there because it's one thing. All of these palms are created because there are different little towns facing opposite and is connected to the palm through these towns. And Jebel Ali is more industrial area, so they did this in anticipation of more families and expats. But because Jebel Ali during the downturn and they just stop it. And Palm Dera is the biggest, the cabbage that I was mentioning, and this is what you see now from the Google. And what happened is that in 2018, they just concentrate on this part. So this is one of the lessons you learn, that you can stop it and land will always be there. So what are the lessons learned? I just want to share. So you can, they created land assets from sea space. There was a time, because the way that Dubai works is different. The municipal is very closely connected to the developers. So there was a time that they even give affection plan, which is the title land you say here. They even wanted to, you can even own the sea that is around your waterfront land. So they provide prime real estate through waterfront creation. This is one thing I learned about this palm. I don't know why people have fascination with waterfront. Even East Village, I begin to realize that people want their apartments facing the river or something, something to do with water. So this may be something that the landscape people can think about. The master plan and building approval processes are fast. Okay, so I can say fast, and in a sense like 3 to 6 months. They are not like 2 years. But they are fast. But the important thing is that when they do a master plan, is the priority is that the development of the nation. So in most of these municipal, you get a lot of expats in there. The third one is a swift adaptation to the changes in global and local market. They really move fast. For example, there was a Trump Tower in Jumeirah, and because he was delaying it, they scrapped the thing and they turned it into another thing. So no Trump Tower in Jumeirah now. Fifth one is the adoption of latest technology, construction technology in projects. So I remember when I was in the Palm, there was some stagnation in the fronts, where the houses were, and immediately we used the latest technology to resolve it. Adherence to sustainability and environmental protocols in executing developments, and this is true. There's special development and environmental, and everything we do, we need to have an EOI. So mega developments, time schedules, this is more of the downside. These projects are really too big. Sometimes you cannot beat the 10-year cycle, economic cycle. You will have up and down, but the good thing is that the land is always there. The other thing is that this high cost of man-made water does not favor inclusivity. So usually, I remember when I first went there 10 years ago, Dubai was actually modeled after Monte Carlo. They said, oh, laborers will come in and do the thing. After 10 years, there will be no more middle income and laborers. But as I said, man proposes, God disposes. So thank you for my presentation.
Thanks, Vincent.
Sure.
Maybe just to kickstart the Q&A, I also had the fortune of visiting the first Palm in 2015. I went to Dubai as part of a trade mission, and I was definitely struck by the scale, the kind of scale of development that you see there. I mean, generally in Dubai is just not something we typically see here. And obviously the political context has a huge influence on the ability for projects like of that scale to happen, but also, and you mentioned it about timelines, huge projects going up in a relatively short period of time, not just in, in the construction of these mega projects, but in their design and approval. And so I guess, one thing I sort of wondered, and I'd love to pose to you, is when we see that kind of political context, which has its benefits and disadvantages relative to a context like ours, with very high turnover in terms of political cycle, right? The 4-year kind of election cycle, which really starts to affect the scale of these mega projects. Like, what can we learn, but also how can we think about like reconciling these very different kinds of models? And is there even an ability to kind of think about those kinds of mega projects at that scale in a place like Canada?
I believe that you need to take risks as developer. I love my real estate class in SAPL. I never took any, so I'm a finance background guy. I did quantity surveying, but I'm really a numbers guy. But from numbers, because of my charismatic skill, so I move into project and development. But what is important, I think people tend to be, skeptical. And I think people, just like here now, you have this community guideline and whatnot. People resist it. I'm shocked. And in Dubai, it's different. People trust the leaders. I know that the city of Calgary, we have good people, really capable people. Carol is a good example. Bruce Irving from Affordable Housing is a good example. I've had them as my guest speaker. But you need to think of the future generation. And that's what Dubai has a vision. Sometimes, yes, through development, you get greedy, but that's the check and balance. You have municipal councils, in Dubai, we have, you won't believe it, we have councils. I mean, it's modeled after North America. You have councils, but these councils are filled with people that are not only local. It's expats all over the world. From Canada, I've submitted my plans from the Palm to them. And they are given like 1 month. You don't sit on it. If you sit on it, we'll get the sheikh to come after you. You see, people must be the heart of the development. And if all these check and balances are there, I believe you can happen. But it's here, like I said, every country is different. Somebody asked me a question on affordable housing. Every country is different, and we need to slowly that's why it's important to the research, and what we know today is to educate people, to make them be critical. Sometimes don't stop a nation, because the future generation will suffer. But at the same time, we learn so much about sustainability. Put it to practice. You're not disturbing anything.
Yeah.
You see my previous pictures, I catch big fish. It's as big as my 2 hands I'm opening up, to show you it's sustainable. Don't destroy the world that nature has given us.
Thank you. We have 2 questions. We'll try to get to them quickly. Brian, do you want to go first?
Okay.
Hi, Brian.
Thanks. Thank you, Vincent. Interesting presentation. I'm building on Jesse's comments in a way. So I've also been to those islands. I spent lots of time in the Emirates and the Middle East. And I write about Islamic architecture and Islamic planning. And I'm particularly interested in the idea, the Arabic word dunya, which means the temporal, the earthly, the material, and contrasting that with the Arabic word din, which has to do with beyond, the sort of spiritual, the things that might be maybe more important. But there needs to be some balance, and I think some synergy. And I think Islam looks for that synergy in planning and design. And I think the Islamic world in some ways and beyond question what Dubai and what Abu Dhabi are up to. So my question is, to what extent is the gesture of the Palm Trilogy more than commercial, more than branding, more than spectacle, no reference to your firm, Jesse, but is it thin or is it deep? Now, I couldn't ask that question so much in the Emirates, but I can ask you here in Canada. Is it a thin gesture or is it a deep gesture with regard to those notions of coupling the spiritual with the material?
Okay, so just like economics, there's an invincible hand. You can start with a noble vision. It's really, to me, my experience is as I said, it's really deep. Why I say deep? Because why? There are a lot of thoughts that put into it. Expat comes, you know, it's like Japan, when the Hiroshima bombed it was a flat place. In the desert, it's flat. You know, they can design anything. That's why I was sharing yesterday, somebody on the kinetics, you know, a lot of Australians, Americans, Canadians are, I think they're very neutral, but they love like cycling parks and all that. I mean, it's 50 degrees. How can you propose a 3-kilometer cycling park? You know, so some of the things you really have to think about it. And I think what is happening in Dubai is that since 2000, I went there 2007, but from 2007 onwards, I think a lot of fusion and challenging. They don't accept just like, oh, because we want to copy the West. I think there was a development idea. I think you know, Brian, that they copied, they even bring the Eiffel Tower, they bring all the, which today they despise it. You know, they're trying to do theme parks that are more like Bollywood and you know, and even the architecture design, no more glass, and they are trying to go back. If you see the Palm Dera, I have the picture because we did our office, and our Palm Dera office has got a lot of Islamic symmetrical. Even if you look at the Louvain Museum in Abu Dhabi, which I was a part of it, we did a lot of symmetrical, and in a way we infuse it, but we don't copy it. So I think it's deep, but it takes time and the younger generation to challenge. The other good thing about Dubai is that, and Abu Dhabi, is that they send a lot of their young people to Singapore and good universities. And when the architects come back, you'll be surprised the way they think, the way they feel so passionate about the vision of Sheikh Mohammed and Sheikh Zayed. So this is very important.
Yeah, I agree, Vincent. And I think as money gets tighter in the Middle East as well as around the world, I think the decisions will be driven by a much more balanced approach to Islamic values than it has been maybe to date. But thank you for a very interesting presentation. A good answer.
Yeah, thank you. And there was one more question, but we're gonna have to move on. So Vincent, Sabine will probably reach out to you in the chat to ask that question directly, so you can kind of keep that conversation going. Just so those know, we are running a bit late, but we will take a 15-minute break after this panel. So don't worry about not being able to take a bio break before the next one. So our last presenter is Youness with the interactive envelope, please.
Okay, thank you, Jesse. Okay, just to be sure that you all see my presentation.
Yes, it's not in presenter mode. Oh, no, it is.
Okay. Okay, so my project today, the prototype that I am going to explain and present that for you is about interactive surface, interactive envelope on the building. It was part of the course integrative design. And it's about kinetic, again, similar to yesterday project, but with the difference in the approach, which in this project I've been working mostly on electromechanical systems in terms of controlling that. So as I mentioned yesterday in my presentation, architects always pursued a kind of responsive architecture, interactive architecture, architecture that can adapt to the environment or even the occupants. So it didn't happen quite successful or even started the practice until the cybernetic theory was introduced by Norbert Wiener as a mathematician in 1960s. Which is about sensing, communication, and controlling the system. So after that, Gordon Pask introduced that theory to the architecture, and it was the first step towards the new realm of the controlling and interactive architecture, which is about being flexible and adapting to the occupant needs. After that, one of the famous project was introduced by Cedric Price, which was Fun Palace, and it was all about interaction and being in a socialized space between the occupant, the user, and the space, which was the architecture. But none of these actually happen in a way that we can see, and we try to practice these days until the 90s. Which computational power became more accessible and ubiquitous, and the way that technology were accessible and more affordable, and the computing power as the computer that we can see today was more available for all people. So that caused us to think more and start practicing more in this area. So as one of the recent project, Hyposurface was one of the successful project that was installed as an interactive surface wall, and which reacted to people or performed some entertaining pattern to the audience. Obviously, it was using a controlling system and a very electromechanical, very sophisticated electromechanical, and programmed pretty well. So, inspired by the similar project, I was looking to have a surface interact to the presence of the occupants and users, and also at the same time it can create a controllable view or window, either to provide energy efficiency, knowing that the R value of windows are much less than the walls, and also diffusing the light to the interior spaces. So I started, this presentation is more about presenting the process that I went through to making that kind of aperture to move and that movement to happen. So I started with the Iris Dome from Chuck Haberman, but the idea was not good. I made this out of the wood and lots of fastener screws, but it didn't work well at all. Because of the weight of the screws. Of course, I could change them to the plastic version, but it didn't work because of too many moving parts. So I ended up with 6 moving pistons, which were secured by a spring to the back of the unit. But it didn't work either, because I underestimated the elastic potential energy of each spring, which I had 6 of them. So it didn't move even 1 millimeter. So I came across these solutions to use gear ratio to increase the power and torque of increasing the torque of the motor. So and after that, it wasn't successful again. So I added the pulley system like a crane, and I increased the force by even 4. So at this time, I got a more promising result, and I could move the system and the aperture. And I ended up this creature, which is a scary little bit. So I didn't want to be this detailed and sophisticated, but anyways, that was a part of the process. So covering up this aperture, which was a unit that I had in mind, and the system was going to be a aggregation of lots of cells beside each other, that they work independently in terms of reacting to the people approaching to it. So and this wall system can be applied over the wall system if we consider like a glass panel, like curtain walls. So can be installed internally or externally over the surface, and or maybe for both sides, back to back, or the favorite one, my favorite one, which if it can be structurally supported, self-supporting in a self-supporting system. It can be only made of these units. And the result can be designed as a interactive surface to the people, which increases the potential of socializing with the wall itself. And in the bigger area, in bigger perspective, you can socialize with the building. So building can react to your presence. So a lesson learned from this project, which was only in 2 or 3 months of the course. So the process of iteration was really tiring, and mostly because of the lack of knowledge of myself as a architect, without background in this stuff, which was not that quite ubiquitous, let's say, in architecture. Is not that common. So I had to learn all aspects of electrical controlling systems, and sensing, and using different sensors and different mechanical system, and a study to make this process happen through making almost 6 or 7 prototypes to get the units work. And that was all. I just try to make it as brief as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Youness. That was great. And so nice to open up the process to let us all kind of in to see how that worked. Makes me think of, like, with prototyping, this beautiful kind of back and forth of learning, but also like, at what point do you know when it's done? And I'm just going to throw that out there, but actually hand it over to Nushin because she has a question.
Hi, Youness. That was really interesting. When I was back at UFC at EVDS, I was working with Vera. You probably know Vera and Bronco. I was working with Vera, and we did a prototype with Arduino. I'm wondering, are you using something like Arduino, or is it just you're connecting it to electrical power? Like, how are you programming it to tell it to when to open, when to stop? Is it only the sensors, and are the sensors through? Yes, they are.
Yeah, I was actually using Arduino system. And yeah, just to let you know that Bronco is my supervisor. So yeah, obviously I'm working with them. So yeah, the system, the controlling mechanism was through the using this micro processor, and obviously I had to make a code for it, to work, I mean, the way that I wanted. So yeah, it was like a back and forth process. So yeah, I went through
So
the
are you
rough
giving it a distance? Because the one that, for example, the one that I work with Vera, we were thinking of what if a kid approach it, so they are short, so the sensors are only sensing them at this height, or whether it's an adult approaching. So does this have sensors all over, or are you basing it
Yes,
on the way people approach it?
yes. Imagine that each panel, each unit has its own sensor, as you can see here, and also you can see it here. And they are going to be installed from the bottom, from the floor to the ceiling. So whoever reaches the panels, so it can sense the audience in whatever size they are.
Very interesting. I know the challenge, so have fun.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, I'm not sure if your name's Debbie, but do you have a question there? No. Okay. Just checking. I think we'll probably need to stop it there. We are already over time. But thank you very much to all the presenters and all the attendees who joined us this morning. Fascinating presentations, and yes, thank you for again opening up your process and opening up your work and sharing it with us. So we are going to take a break, a 15-minute break, and join back after that 15 minutes for the next session, which is Meta Dev, which will be moderated by Anna Hidalgo. So thank you everyone, and we'll see you shortly.
Also, I was going to mention that we do have one other presentation that will be joining us on the Meta Dev that she was not able to present in this session, but she'll join us in the next session, Hannah.